for equality in the Obama era. BAM salutes the movement that has developed within the Democratic Party presidential primary process among a rank and file committed to electing America's first black president and launching a new period of progressive change in American history. BAM calls on Senator Barack Obama to honor his promise to bring new hope to the American people and to fulfill the confidence placed in him by his progressive supporters by making clear his commitment to the progressive aspirations they have brought to this campaign. Particularly in the light of ambiguities in Senator Obama's position, especially the views expressed in his March 2008 speech, A More Perfect Union, which seems to suggest that this time for the independent struggle for civil rights and equal justice by black, Latino, Latina, and other minority people and their white supporters have passed, and that such struggle today is harmful. BAM cannot endorse Mr. Obama's candidacy, but this does not mean we fail to recognize the historical importance of his election as president. We welcome the progressive movement that has formed around his candidacy and pledge ourselves to do all in our power to make real the democratic and egalitarian hopes this movement has brought to the foreground of American politics.
As a civil rights organization created to build a new civil rights movement in America, BAM has been obliged to maintain a strict independence from both the Democratic and Republican parties and to reject in their entirety the methods of cynical maneuvering and manipulation of the electorate and the domination of the electoral process by money that are completely characteristic of the American two-party system as it has actually developed in American history. BAM has been created because of the crying need in American political life for a force whose aims and methods are not defined or delimited by the priorities of an electoral system corrupted by money and deformed by petty ambition. BAM's aims and methods are determined by BAM's publicly stated principles. Its organization is based on an open and democratic discussion and decision-making, and a leadership always accountable to its rank and file. BAM's norms are determined by the direct and honest relationship of activist members to the oppressed and disadvantaged communities BAM organizes, mobilizes, educates, and constantly learns from. BAM has and seeks to have no ambitions and in fact no future apart from the future of these communities.
Above all, BAM's character is the character of the youth whose leadership BAM was created to build. It is the hope of these youth for the future of their society and the world in which their nation plays so decisive a role that is the basis of BAM's hope. BAM looks forward to working with the rank and file supporters of Senator Obama, now and in the future, on the basis of our appreciation of the importance of their aims and efforts. We hope to walk together with them on the road that leads to a far more just, far more democratic, far more honest, far more humane, and far more egalitarian society.
We urge, as a partial basis for the discussions we should be having in the course of our joint struggles, the following principles, among others. 1. A just American foreign policy would have to consist of the concrete application of the principles declared in Martin Luther King's Riverside Church speech, announcing his opposition to the Vietnam War, delivered in April 1967, 1 year before Dr. King was assassinated. 2. Real hope for America's future must be based on the plain truth about American society and the actual truths of the lives of all its people, not the endless repetition of patriotic myths and high-sounding platitudes without substance.
3. If a progressive movement is to offer real hope for solving the long-standing and most important problems of our history, it must develop over time on the basis of clear principles, determined and tested concretely in the course of its struggles, not blind loyalty to a particular leader or a confused adherence to ill-defined slogans. In their origins, all progressive movements in history, like all human beings, have started life with a certain lack of clarity. What is important is that no obstacles prevent achieving the clarity needed to win in the course of actual experience over time. In order to achieve that needed clarity on the basis of concrete experience, it is imperative that any progressive movement be essentially democratic, diverse, dynamic, and free of any uncritical fealty to dogmas of the past.
4. If the progressive movement is to make a meaningful contribution to solving our nation's most important problems, it must attend with special care to the truths to be told by those Americans who have been the victims of those most important problems. In particular, it should be a sacred principle to respect the right to speak the plain truth about racism, sexism, and the other fundamental inequalities and injustices of our nation. 5. In our nation's history, abstract concepts of equality have always played the role of distracting attention from the real concrete inequalities all about us. It seems that once we Americans were all created equal, the powers that be have expected us to take for granted that nothing but inequalities were to be expected after that brief initial moment of creation. Real hope for progressive change cannot be fulfilled by mere repetition of the abstract equalities of a banal patriotism, whose real aim is not progressive at all, but is rather aimed at promoting a deceptive complacency and a sort of lulled and dulled conservatism that is the enemy of all progressive and creative change.
6. What America needs is not more lulling and dulling, but the repetition of abstract ideas of equality and justice, but real, concrete, positive change based on the frank recognition of the concrete inequalities and injustices that engulf us. 7. The Obama movement must learn to recognize and reject all the deceptive and seductive appeals of the new Jim Crow. To fail to do this, would be a fatal mistake which would undermine the ability of this movement to realize any of its larger aims.